Hello, this is Rico Cavella, and this is your Fearless Aging podcast. And as always, my guests and I, we strive to offer you tips and strategies that you can begin to use immediately to greatly improve your health, your energy, and so you can live a more successful, fulfilled, long life and to never be old. And so we're here to inspire you and to empower you to become your best self so you can go out in the world and make a bigger positive difference. And as I'm sure everybody knows, that's what we need these days. We need more people to stand up and be their best self and make a positive contribution to creating a more peaceful and healthy and prosperous world for everyone. So before we get started today, I always want to remind my audience that my new 90-day online ageless living lifestyle wellness coaching program is now evergreen. You can join at any time, and you have me as your personal trainer, and we'll develop your personal lifetime ageless living lifestyle wellness system. So go to agelesslivinglifestyle.com/coaching, and you can learn all about it. So the title of today's episode is How to Improve Your Balance with Dual Tasking. And I think this is really such an important topic. And we'll get into all that, maybe some of the stats too, of how many people are having a problem with their balance as they age. So we have a great guest today. His name is Nathan Estrada. He's the clinical vice president of Nimble Science, and he's a doctor of physical therapy. So Nathan, thanks so very much for being here. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I always like to ask my guests to begin is tell us, what are you most passionate about in your life today?
Yeah, I think what I'm most passionate about is, demystifying aging as this thing that just passively happens. We're such active participants, and the majority of how we experience life in general, whether it's aging or relationship or community, is based on our decisions and our behaviors. And I've chosen my current passion, which is to reduce falls and fall risk, which is the number one cause of anxiety when we age. Because when you fall, your mobility goes down. And once your mobility fails, everything else falls apart behind that. And it's so preventable, and there's so much we can do about it.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Absolutely. Yeah, so we're going to get into. I know you and I are on the same path here about aging, so we're going to talk a little bit about that and like say demystify some of the myths that people still are thinking about aging. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your background, your journey, and how you came to do what you do today.
Yeah, so I'm actually a second generation physical therapist. The first generation was my father. And I kind of grew up watching him and how he would impact people's lives through mobility, through power and force and functional activity. And I fell in love with that. But it was actually kind of watching people in my own family age. And frankly, there was a lot of issues in my own family to where they weren't aging well. There was a lot of behaviors like alcoholism and different things, and no Estrada male had ever lived to 50.
Wow.
And so suddenly you have this realization that, hey, what are we doing wrong? What is it that we're doing? And it's not like some kind of genetic trigger that you turn 50 and then suddenly people were going over. And I remember when my dad turned 50 and he realized he wasn't dead. And he'd been living life as if he was going to die at 50. And he realized that I have to live a different life because I'm still alive. And I think when I really look at that, a lot of what I bring to kind of older adult physical therapy was really based on that premise that it's the things that we do that make a difference, not the things that people tell us.
Oh, that's so well said. That's absolutely true. And I just want to add, science now tells us that our genetic potential is to stay healthy to at least 125. So our lifespan could be 125, but yet we know our life expectancy is only about 78. And and so I think people, that's one of the main premises of ageless living lifestyle is first of all, you have to believe that you can stay healthy and live longer, and not to put any kind of limitations on your health or on aging or how long you're going to live. And really, and one of our sayings is aging is natural, but growing old is not. So in other words, we have to age, but we don't have to get old in the process.
It's so true, Rico. When you look at kind of the aging process, people, you always hear, well, back pain runs in my family. Well, there's not a single genetic risk factor for back pain, but
Right.
there's a lot of behaviors that you learn from your parents that result
Yeah.
in back pain.
Yeah.
And so it's such a reality that we have so much better to live and to experience if we just stop relying on it's not in our control, not in our power. When you realize how powerful your decisions are, you age so much differently.
Again, I like you say that really well. Yeah, it's no question. We also know that our genes only play a small role on how healthy and how long we're going to live. It's really our lifestyle and our behavior, that, as you say. Uh, what are some of the main, say, myths of aging that you found that you think that's important for people uh, to understand?
Well, I think one of the key ones is aging's not less. We have this interesting mentality where we actually decrease value as we get older. It's like you retire and you're not working anymore. You're not in a multi-generational family to offer mentorship to other generations. And it's a kind of uniquely American thing. And there's nothing to substantiate that. The best agers in the world continue to grow in value generation, decline in it. And when you look at kind of the specific passion that I have, which is balance, most falls are preventable.
Mm.
You didn't trip over your dog. You had bad balance, which allowed you to fall. And so as a result of that, anyone can improve their balance, and it's really never too late to start. Our balance starts to decline in our 30s, mostly because our activity level changes. We have impeccable balance when you're a little kid falling out of trees all the time and jumping over logs and playing in rivers. And then as you age, you stop doing those things that stimulate your balance, and balance just kind of gets numb, and you just got to retrain it. And it's not that hard.
Yeah, that's again. Yeah, that's so good. Well, what about how we've learned that balance has to do with in our ear, in our inner ear, and all that. Does that change as we age? Have you found that to be a problem, though? Just normally that we have problem with our balance because of changes in our eardrums or that sort of thing.
It is interesting. The inner ear or the vestibular system is about a third of your balance.
Okay.
There's three sensations that go into balance, and frankly, none of them improve with age, but how much they decline is determined by behavior. So the three senses are vision, inner ear, and then joint sensation. And so those three senses combine to tell your body whether you're losing your balance or you're not. And so if your vision is failing, if you have a high inflammatory diet, right, and you have early onset vision problems, well, yeah, then that makes your balance worse. If you don't take care of your joints and you're not moving all the time, well, that makes your balance worse. And from an inner ear perspective, there's a lot of things that we just don't pay attention to all the stimulation that's required to keep us uptrained, all the things that make amusement parks fun, roller coasters and acceleration and gravity. When you stop doing those movements, your inner ear becomes less active and you sense your balance less.
Wow. Okay. That's so good. Yeah, we have a saying too. Move it or lose it. If you don't move it, you're going to lose it. Right. That is so good. Well, tell us just a little bit about some of the statistics and how prevalent is this, and what kind of a big problem is it creating for most people as they age, as far as actually falling.
Yeah, so when you look at falls is the number one cause of accidental injury and death of aging. So anyone over 65, you're more likely, if it's an accident, to be impaired by a fall than anything else. And about a third of older adults fall every year, but that's gone up to about 37 to 38% post-pandemic because of how little mobility a few generations have had. And so our whole ability has declined. It used to be that we only thought a quarter of older adults fall. The difference is a quarter are willing to admit it, right? If you
Yeah.
ask someone whether they
Yeah.
fell, that's much different from did they actually fall, because it's not something you're proud of. Right, it's not something you want to share with your family, because then suddenly people start going, well, maybe they should move from their house, or your doctor starts talking to you differently. And so it's the single greatest preventable cause of decline from a medical side, because once you fall, you change your behavior, Rico. And so you can imagine someone who's fearful of falling is twice as likely to have a future fall, even if they don't have a past fall. It's the second greatest predictor of a fall. So our beliefs directly result in our behaviors. And I'll tell you what, people that are fearful, they don't live great lives. They live smaller lives. And small lives is a life lacking stimulation and your balance declines. And that's how it actually feeds into itself. And so ultimately, since most falls are preventable, the best thing that we could be doing is constantly working on our balance and moving more and challenging our limits, because risk is part of life. When you start avoiding risk, like, hey,
Yeah.
let's remove throw rugs from a house. Well, that's a trash advice. Because if
Yeah.
you remove a throw rug, you're removing stimulus that you had to step over. I want people to step over that every day, because when you lose the ability to step over it, you know that you've lost the ability to live a normal life outside of your home. And what's the point at that point? You want to be able to move and be dynamic and participate in life. And that's not through avoiding risk, it's through overcoming it.
Mm. Again, really well said, Nathan. I really like that. Yeah, I've always really disliked the term senior citizen to begin with, right? It puts people in a category. They start to think, oh, I'm a senior. I got to be careful. I got to do this and that. And they kind of shut down, as you say. Yeah, we got so many things in our society, especially when it comes to health and aging and longevity, that we really need to turn around. So you're really offering a good service. Well, let's go ahead and get into it, and let's talk about if someone comes to you that's having trouble with their balance and maybe has fallen and needs some help. And let's talk about the technique you guys have is called dual tasking.
Yeah, so dual task balance training, it's not something we invented. It's actually what physical therapists do naturally. So it realizes that, balance is far more about your brain than your body. You can have a terrible body as far as mobility and still have great balance, and you can have, an incredibly healthy body and have terrible balance. And so the first three steps to recovering your balance are brain. The first two are brain, and then only the third is mobile. So what happens is you have to sense it. We talked about the three balance sensations. They let your body know. And then there's the cerebellum on the back of your brain, that little cauliflower looking thing that then actually has the reflex to step, to react, to recover, and then your mobility matters. So what we do is we actually recreate the natural environment that your body has to use balance, which is how to move and have your brain doing something else at the same time. Because if you can't move without thinking about your movement, you're a faller. And here's what happens, Rico, is we have this misconception that that balance is somehow a thought. You can't think your way through balance. It's not like when you're falling, you can go, well, Nathan said in balance class to do this. By the time you have that thought, you already fell.
Yeah.
And so it's designed differently, but you go to a balance class and far too often people are taught to focus on their balance, to stand on one foot and to think about what your ankles, knees, and hips are doing. That doesn't represent what happens in nature. We fall when we're distracted, not when you're focused. So you have to practice your balance in a distracted state to force your cerebellum to really work on that reflex again and to make it a automatic process. Because you know what you need all the time? You need balance everywhere, regardless of the distractions of life. So by working on the brain and body together, and we implement that by simply a cognitive game while you're doing a simple functional movement that you'd be doing anyway. Because balance is not a back flip, it's a step, it's a recovery, it's a weight shift. And so by combining that simple brain game with that functional movement, what you're doing is you're just facilitating the brain relearning balance as a reflex. That way you don't have to worry about it, and it's always available when you stumble, because all of us stumble. Some of us have a reflex to recover and some of us don't. And that's the difference between falling and not falling.
Okay, so it's about having that, being able to have that reflex when you do kind of trip or something on something. Okay, that sounds really good. So tell us a little bit more about then what kind of things do you have people do that the dual tasking?
Yeah, so we really start out pretty simple because, frankly, not a lot of people enjoy exercise, Rico. It's a funny thing. Even the name can have a negative.
It's a funny thing, yeah.
Right? But all of us know we need to do it. And there's actually two main personas out there. There's the people that love to go to the gym. It's about 1 in 10 older adults. And about 1 in 10 older adults needs a physical therapist. And then the other 80 to 84% in the middle are actually doing nothing, which is why you have, a whole conversation, which is, hey, let's actually start with the something. So the starting with something at Nimble is we look at what you're predicted to do in a normal day. So if you're not very mobile and you're just kind of walking around your house, that's as challenging as we give you. But we then start teaching you how to do those simple functional movements with the brain challenge at the same time. And we build your capabilities slowly based on how you perform. So if you can barely get out of a chair, we start you at that level. If you're an Olympic ager, we start you at that level. And then we promote you based on your performance. So by having that personalization at the beginning and the ability for it to maintain, kind of slowly challenging you, we grow people's balance the whole time. It feels like you're just playing a game, but what you're doing is you're slowly improving your balance a little bit every day. We don't allow it to get more than 10 minutes because frankly, very few people are willing to do more than 10 minutes of anything. So we kind of take a behavioral health approach, which what is the minimum that you can do every day that moves you one step closer to your goal, kind of eating that elephant one bite at a time, right? And then what we find is that people slowly and methodically improve their balance at their own pace. And because we stay at their own pace, we're able to actually get more people to do it, which is the big problem. Because nationally, only 1 in 800 older adults has ever been to a balance class, but 1 in 3 fall. So the problem is we're not giving people what they want. And so we focus on giving people what they want rather than what they should. No one does what they should. We all do what we want.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I found the same thing with teaching people fitness and exercise. You have to just start them where they're at and do things that that they can or will enjoy and do it more naturally instead of and at their own pace. That seems to work out better. Okay, so when you're working with a person, what are some of the brain activities that you have people do while you're doing a movement?
So we give people a little bit of choice there, because if you hate math, the last thing I want to do is give you a bunch of math problems, but it's really a combination of challenging different parts of the brain. So, Rico, you're a fairly analytical person. And so I would have to get you to do more abstract thoughts to challenge your cognitive ability. Someone who's more abstract, I need to challenge them a little bit more analytical, because you have to be fully engaged in that. And that's person to person is unique. So think of unscrambling words, simple math, doing memory, but nothing that takes longer than 30 to 60 seconds, because we really know that we want to keep their attention on something and let them have fun and win something, right? That's the whole point of playing a game. We don't play games to lose. We play games to win. Right. So we allow people to do things that they enjoy that slightly challenge them. And so I'll give you an example of showing 6 pictures of animals. And then you see those pictures, they're different colors, different types of animals. And then asking you a question afterwards, how many of those animals could lay eggs? And you go, well, that's not what I was paying attention to. And then you have to go back and go, well, can a penguin lay an egg? And then that's that whole cognitive process. And the whole time you're doing that, your cerebellum's maintaining your balance and your balance is improving. You just don't even feel it. So it's pretty dynamic. We allow people a little bit of choice, but I like to challenge people's cognitive abilities, because dual task balance training not only improves balance, but it improves long-term memory. It improves the ability to tolerate doing multiple things at once, and also improves cognitive speed.
But you're also doing some sort of physical movement at the same time?
You always have to. In fact, if you're not moving while your brain is distracted, you're not doing balance training at all. And so, and those simple functional movements are really dependent on what people are capable of doing safely in that moment. Because, we're not looking to make people fall during balance training. As a result of that, you have to make the movements fairly simple, just like balance is fairly simple.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. Well, so have you found that, well, obviously it depends on a degree of a person's, where they're at and what kind of problems they have. But if a person comes to you and say, I'm having a little trouble with my balance and I'm falling, how long will it take to really get some significant improvement?
Rico, it really depends on how far your journey is to go before you get out of high risk. So my goal is to get people who are high risk out of the category altogether. It's not just to maintain what you currently have today, it's to regain your balance and reverse the loss of balance. And so that's a little bit unique. On some people are pretty close and they don't need a lot. In fact, we actually have measurable outcomes with 4 to 9 balance training sessions in those high performing people. What that means is they did 40 to 90 minutes of balance training. And then you have some people that start off and they need a much longer journey. So if you have a hard time getting out of a chair, well, it might take you 50 or 60 sessions because you have so much growth to have. But here's the general averages. On average, people's balance improved by about 30%. And about half the people that are doing our program have what's called a clinical meaningful improvement in balance. In other words, if you went to a physical therapist, we would call that a successful improvement, even though you're never working with a clinician. About a third of the older adults on our platform who start off high risk leave the high risk category altogether. And here's what that equates in. Well, we show that we reduced fall-related claims by 35%. So 35% less often needing an ambulance, 35% less often being hospitalized and needing medical care. And that's really the key goal is there's not all falls are equivalent. You can fall 6 times and kind of have your ego bruised. You can fall 1 time and break your hip. And so our goal is to stop injurious falls because those are the ones that matter. And so ultimately, that's what we're really proud of, is that we've literally decreased fall-related medical claims by 35%, which means that a third of the population out there doesn't even experience what they would have if they weren't on our platform.
What is the average age of a person that comes to you for some help?
We average age depends a little bit on our target audience. It's 72 years of age if we're just deployed to anybody. So when you look at the general problem, there's kind of a peak motivation time, and it's 70 to 75. And the reason why that is when you turn 60, you have no concept of you're not old, and when you turn 70, you're still in that brain kind of reality of I'm not old. But there's something that happens there that you start to feel different. And when you start to feel different and then you have a close relationship that falls, you go, I don't want that outcome. I don't want to be a faller and I'm feeling different. I better do something about it. And so we find that that's kind of where they combine. But we have people all the way into their 80s and 90s do fantastic, because you and I both know there's 85-year-olds who are still skiing and 65-year-olds who can't get out of a chair. Right. And so we have great impact all the way through. I even did a study in the UK in a senior living environment where the average age was 94.
Wow.
And
94, huh?
Yeah. And what we found is that everyone can improve their balance. It's just a matter of starting them at the right challenge level.
Yeah, it's just like fitness. Everybody can improve your fitness level, no matter what your age or what health challenges you have. You can always improve yourself. Absolutely. Well, I know you guys are based in Denver. Do you have other clinics that are doing what you guys do at other places, or what?
Really interesting. So we're actually not a clinic. We're actually a program that we partner with large organizations like Medicare Advantage plans. Those Medicare Advantage plans make us a health benefit to their beneficiaries. So one of the things that we really wanted to solve is there are plenty of great balance classes, Rico. If you go to the YMCA, they're going to have something for you. But the reality of it is no one goes to them because only 1 out of 10 older adults is going to the gym.
Okay.
So we had to design an in-home solution that uses something that most older adults have today and they love, which is a smart device, a phone or a tablet, iOS or Android. And we leverage that intelligence that they already have, put a program on that allows them to have a personalized balance experience. And that balance experience can be done in the privacy of your own home, all by yourself, without someone looking over your shoulder, without going somewhere, because ultimately that's where the majority of Americans are. And so we don't have a clinic. We actually have people doing the platform nationwide. We're actually the program for New Zealand as well, where we did the largest fall prevention study outside of a clinical setting in the world. And we had 15,000 older adults in that study. And that's where we found that 35% reduction in fall-related medical cost. But yeah, so we're one of those things that we knew that if we were going to impact it at scale, we had to actually be scalable. And you can't scale humans going to everyone's house. You have to be able to offer it to hundreds of thousands as easily as tens of, and dozens, because only 12 people at a time can attend a balance class. And that's never going to solve the problem. Rico, at a national level, there's only 20,000 older adults a year that's in the National Evidence-Based Fall Prevention Program. That's not even a rounding error. That's not enough to even have a measurable impact. I have 50,000 older adults doing balance training in the last 16 months.
Wow, that's so good. Okay, so if someone is interested in particularly our audience is interested, or for someone else, how would they find your platform and program?
Well, first off, if it's available to them, they already know it. In other words, we don't make it a secret. So all of our partners that that subscribe to Nimble and that offer it as a health benefit to their members allow us to directly to communicate to all the people on their plan. So one nice thing is there's no ambiguity. You know if you have it or if you don't. But we're expanding all the time. We're a fairly young company. We started in 2016, and we've only been expanding in Medicare Advantage for the last 2 years. And so it's our goal to be universally available so that no one has to pay for it. Because we just don't believe that an older adult should ever have to pay for a program that saves the insurance company $15,000 when you don't fall. They should be motivated to sponsor you. And so that's our goal. And if they wanted their insurance company to participate, the best thing that they could do is request that they actually allow Nimble to be a benefit on their plan. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that when you tell your Medicare Advantage plan you want a service, they take that advice really seriously. And so if you let them know that you want to make it available, most likely they're already talking to us anyway. It'll just help us speed up the process so that we can be available to you as well.
Okay. And if they go to your website, it's nimblescience.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, nimblescience.com. And it has some great information on some of our outcomes and who kind of our partners are. And so I would really encourage you to do that. But most importantly, what I would encourage you to do is to take what we do as part of your daily lifestyle, that you have to challenge the brain and the body together. So don't just simply go for a walk, go for a walk and do something cognitive at the same time so that you can make all those activities a balance challenge.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Isn't it interesting, Nathan, that everything that we really know that is good for, whatever ailment you may have, it's pretty much the same thing, isn't it? It's the same thing. You got to get out and move your body. You got to breathe. You got to eat healthier food. You got to get sleep. You got to change your mindset. You got to reduce stress. All those things that we know that create a better health are going to benefit no matter what kind of problem that you're having. All right. So that's always where you want to start. But I think you're really providing a great service. So again, if they want to learn more, just to see more about what you guys are doing, they can go to Nimble, which is spelled NYMBL science.com. But then, like I say, they could just get a hold of, if they're not familiar with that or know about it, they can get a hold of their healthcare provider and ask about having that service.
Yeah, because Rico, the reality of it is when you look at kind of that movement is medicine, right? And you better be taking a daily dose of that medicine. And just like challenging your brain is medicine, just like eating great food is medicine. And if we could just get people to wrap their brain around the fact that I'm dedicated to taking this blood pressure medication, I should be just as dedicated to exercising every day. Because one of them is far more impactful than the other. Movement has always been the most effective way to maintain health and to regain health. And so a lot of times what we find is that when people start moving again and start really challenging their body, their need for prescription medications goes down, right? Because they're actually giving themselves the right type of medicine, which is aging well.
That's so good. I really like the way you express that. Yeah, there's no question. Being a personal trainer for almost 40 years, I've gotten people out of wheelchairs. That they just allow their muscles to get so weak and all the connective tissues to be so stiff that they can't do it. But they just need to begin to move again, and you can change things. Move your mind and move your body, and amazing things will happen.
Yeah, it's amazing too when you think of how we learn these things. A lot of times people start off with these goals that are totally not something they plan on doing. No one follows through with their New Year's resolution because it was out of left field. It was something they hadn't planned on doing. So what we do instead is we go, what's the easy win today, right? What's that's less than 10-minute behavior that we can change that one-time behavior to do it 2 days in a row, to 3 days in a row, and build upon that. Because exercise is closer to nutrition than it is strength training. And here's what I mean by that. If you exercised one time a month for an hour, would you consider yourself a healthy person? Nope. No. And the same thing on diet, right? If you had one good meal a month, you wouldn't consider yourself a healthy eater.
Yeah.
It's little things that you do every day that build upon themselves, that allow you to have that end goal. Sometimes people just start off, too aggressive. And I really liked what you said earlier, Rico, which is doing the things you like. There's no one program that's best for everybody.
Right.
What really matters is if you enjoy it, you're more likely to do it. So I used to have a formula when I was doing physical therapy, which was joy plus entertainment always equals sustainment. So if you have a physical activity that you enjoy, start there and do that all the time, because that's sustainable, and then grow into other things. Because far too often we tell people what they should do and we offer them something that they were never going to follow through. And then we think they're not motivated when they don't do it. Well, we just gave them the wrong solution.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I've learned too is if you are going to be successful at achieving any type of a goal, as you said, most people's goals are just superficial. And so you have to tie it to what's really important in your life. So just like for you, if you're telling people, well, if you improve your balance, how's that going to change your life? And how's that going to impact your life? And so if you tie that, when they drill down and ask them enough questions, what's really important might be that they want to be able to go play with your grandchildren or something like that. So, and that's what's really important. So if you do this exercise that you teach them, it's going to help you to be able to sustain yourself so you can go out and do the things that really are important to you. I think that's a helpful thing too.
Well, Rico, because it's about life goals.
Yeah.
We don't have the goal to wake up every morning to exercise. We exercise so that we can live the life we want to live.
Right.
And some people get that in the wrong order. Some people think the goal is exercise. Well,
Yeah.
We're exercising to fill in deficit or to build resiliency. If you don't use that into more mobility, into more participation in life, that's actually not a very great outcome. It would be a waste of time to have a perfectly healthy human body that you didn't engage people in a productive way, that you didn't have community, relationship, and mobility. It would be wasted. And so ultimately, it's those things. And I mean, as a physical therapist, Rico, it'd be really funny. I used to ask people and doing home health, because I spent years in home health, and I'd say, do you want to exercise? And half the older adults would say, I've never had someone ask me that, but thank you for asking me. No, I don't. And I said, well, great. So I'm a physical therapist. I offer health through functional training. And what you just said is that you're not looking to do that. And so I'm more than happy. Do you want me to take out your trash? And it would really catch them off guard, because they said, what do you mean take out my trash? I said, I have nothing to offer you because you don't want what I have to offer. And they, well, no, I do want it, but I want to move better. I said, okay, so this is your goal. Your goal is to move better. What do you want to do to make that happen? Well, I'm willing to do one exercise. I was like, great. You know what happened? I would come back next time and they go, hey, I think I'm ready for 5 or 6 more. And then I come back again, they're like, give me more. And they were always wanting more. If I started off with 5 or 6, know what they would do? Only a quarter of them would ever do it. So create and really paying attention to what someone wants is really the secret sauce here. Is we got to get out of our own way of telling people what they should do and start off with what are your goals and how can I help you get there? Because some of the things you want, you don't know yet.
Yeah, absolutely true. That's so good, Nathan. Again, you express all these things really well. So that's so good. So I really appreciate what you're doing and appreciate your message. And it's so great that you're just, actually, you're really doing this as a public service to let people know that they can do much better and they don't have to be fearful of falling, and they can live a healthier, more energetic, longer life. And that's what ageless living lifestyle is all about as well. So you have any last words you think that you want to say?
Yeah, I think the key for me is obviously we've designed Nimble to be a great program to enhance your balance, but that doesn't mean that you have to have Nimble as the path to do that. And I want to give some really tangible advice on if you want to improve your balance, regardless of where you're listening or regardless of what you're doing right now, some things that you could do that will make your balance better. First off, let's talk about what doesn't work. What doesn't work is avoiding risk. In other words, taking away all the throw rugs, adding grab bars everywhere has never been shown to decrease risk. It just makes you do less. And if doing less is your goal, congratulations, you're not living a very powerful life. So I would I would really challenge the thought that simply making my environment safer is the best thing for you. You need to be able to overcome the barriers of your environment more than anything. Number two is anything can be balanced. A lot of people, they go, well, I walk every day, so I have great balance. I'm like, no, they're not the same thing. If you walk and talk, you're training balance. If you walk and sing, if you walk and count how many birds you see or how many blue cars there are, if you challenge your brain during that movement, well, now you're doing balance training. And so don't confuse just moving with balance training. And the same thing on a balance class. If you're thinking about your balance, you're not balance training. Number three, it's just the little things that we do every day. So when you're brushing your teeth, if you can't stand on one leg, try putting your feet together while you're brushing your teeth, right? And every time you pass the kitchen sink, put your hands on top of the sink. That way, if you go in any kind of direction, you catch yourself, and try to stand on one leg. Every once in a while, when you're standing, close your eyes and challenge yourself. And I think the best thing that you can do functionally is when you're sitting down and you're getting out of a chair, never sit down once. Sit down 5 or 6 times in a row. If you do that, you're going to squat 70 times a day, right? And it's those little behaviors that every time you pass the sink, do some balance. Every time you're in the restroom, washing your hands, do some balance. And when you're outdoors, step over the curb, don't go around it. In other words, challenge yourself all the time, because by challenging yourself, you're maintaining and gaining great wellness. When we stop avoiding, or when we start avoiding things, that's when things fall apart.
Wow, that's so good. You know, that's something I really haven't heard that much from anyone else in any area of wellness. That's so good. When you stop avoiding risk, yeah, that's so good. That's so good, Nathan.
Rico, you look at the science behind that. There's the national program. Their whole goal is to clean your environment and make sure you can never trip. And that does decrease falls for about 3 months until their ability goes down because they're doing less, that now everything's dangerous. And what we found is that adding grab bars everywhere and removing throw rugs has doubled the mortality rate for falls in the United States in the last 20 years. In other
Wow.
words, you're twice as likely to die from a fall today than you were 20 years ago. And the only major difference as a country level is that we told everyone how much risk there was in the world. So every time you go to the doctor, they ask you, are you high risk for falls? And then they remind you you're high risk for falls. And then you go to the hospital and they put a little label on your wrist that says high risk. And they don't even let you out of bed because you're so broken, you can't even walk. And so everywhere you go, you get this message that you're less, that you're broken, that you're risky. And then people internalize that message and they actually act broken.
Yeah,
And
no
people that
question.
act broken don't move, and people that don't move fall and get injured. And so our national program actually makes falling worse, not better. And it's because it's focused on the wrong thing. It's focused on the environment made you fall rather than what you can do to overcome any environment. Because you know where the trip hazards are? Everywhere. Just because you
Yeah,
remove a throw rug in your house doesn't mean you go to your son's house and he doesn't have one.
right.
And so if you want to be successful everywhere, you have to learn to live to your capabilities, not to your fear levels.
Wow, that's so good. That's so well said. I think we'll leave it at that. That summed it up really well, Nathan. Thank you so very much. So I always like to end all my shows with saying, you know, knowledge without action is useless. You know, so you've gotten some really great information, some great knowledge here today from Nathan. So you got to act on it. You know, so step up and realize what he had to say was such wisdom, and it's going to make a big difference in the world. So if you're having this challenge, and which most everybody does have, you know, as Nathan said, you know, there's plenty of information out there now that where you can go and request it from your healthcare provider, or go to nimboscience.com. You can learn more, or just begin to get more creative in your life, right? And move more and use your brain more, and you can overcome just about anything.
That's right. Thank you so much, Rico.
Thank you so much. That was really great.